Hello, good morning everyone. Welcome to bisptrainings.com. My name is Sumit and this is my consecutive video in Jython tutorial series. In this video, we'll be going to see how can we work on Jython. In my existing video, I have demonstrated about Jython and how to install and configure Jython on your local system. So in this video, we'll be going to learn how to write syntaxes in Jython, how to create variables, how to work on functions, and so on in Jython. So let's start one by one. So the first feature of Jython is that we can use Jython as a command line interpreter. What do we mean by command line interpreter? Means that we can enter the command, we can execute the command one by one at a time directly on the command prompt or on the Jython interpreter. We don't need to create any file for that. We don't need to execute any additional file. We can directly type our command or we can directly pass our command on the Jython interpreter, and Jython interpreter will execute it and gives us the immediate results. So let's take an example for the same. So first of all, I get to the command prompt, and in command prompt, I'll switch to the Jython directory. So Jython 2.2.1, and then here I simply pass a command Jython, which will run the Jython interpreter. So that's the Jython interpreter, and now we can pass command here one by one. As I have already told you just now that we can use Jython as a command line interpreter. We can pass commands one by one over here as directly without defining any additional file. So for example, I simply pass a command here 1 plus 2 and it will give me the immediate result as 3. In similar way, if I simple pass here hello plus goodbye and enter, it will concatenate the strings. So this is command line interpreter. We are passing the commands directly on the Jython shell and we'll get the output instantly. So the Jython, it will get the command, it will interpret it and gives the result immediate to the user. If I want to exit from this interpreter, so for this we need to pass a command import sys, and then I can pass a command system.exit and 0, so it will close the command Jython interpreter, and then finally I can close the command prompt. So that's how we are going to work on this Jython shell. So let's start again and Jython 2.2.1 and run the command Jython. Next, there are Jython basic data types and operators. Operators, like as you know that operators works on operands, and the operators that are used by Pythons are very similar to those we use in other languages. So the operators we use in Jython are similar to those we use in other languages, like we have plus operator, minus operator, multiply and divide. So, and they are available for performing the various calculations. Apart from this, we have other operators as well. For example, I create here one variable x is equal to 10 and y is equal to 20. So if I want to find out whether the x is same as equal to y or not, so for that, without using any if and else statement, we can directly pass, there is one operator available with Jython, that is x is not y. And you see I got the output as a 1. So result I'm getting here 1. What do we mean by 1? 1 means if the value of x and y are same, then it will return 0, else it will return 1. So let's have a look here. X is equal to 10 and y is equal to 10. So again I write here, if x is not y, it will return 0. So it is checking whether x is equal to y or not. So if it found x and y both the values are same, it will return 0, else it will return 1. So in similar way we have other operators as well, like x plus y, x minus y, x multiply y, and x divide by y. So we have all the operators which we have, if the all the operators with which you are familiar, we are familiar in other languages, in Python or in any other languages, all the operators can be used within Jython as well. So you don't need any additional knowledge for the same. If you have already exposure, or if you have an experience of or knowledge of the operators, you can use the same operators in Jython without any special learning. Next, we have Jython math module. Jython math module means, for example, we have math functions like sine, cos, tan. So, for example, I have to use those sine, cos, tan, and pi function. First of all, we need to import the math module. So, the command will be from math import star. So, it will import all the functions which are available within math module. Math package will be available with the current interpreter. So for example, I pass here from math import star. Sorry, it should be import star. And then we can start passing the values. So for example, I write print pi equal to %f is the float value, comma e equal to %f percent pi comma e is for exponent, and we got the value 3.141593 and 2.718282. So that's how we can use the values, we can display the value. And what do we exactly mean by %f and %f? This basically is the format that what kind of data you are going to display. Instead of %f, if I use %d, we have here %d as well. So you see I change %f to %d, and %d will only gives the whole numbers of only the integer values. See, we are getting only value 3 and 2. So all the decimal values will be eliminated. So if you want to print the float values, you need to use f. If you only want the integer values, you need to pass %d here. Similar way, if we want the values of sine, we can use sine and %f equal %f, and we can pass the value. And always remember, the number of values you want to print, you need to pass the number of exponents here. Now %f 2 times %f means we are passing two values. We will be going to print two values. Print sine of %f equal to %f percent. Here we don't pass any %f or %d, 0.5 comma, and we are using the function which are available in the math package, and we got the output 0.5 and 0.479426. In similar way, we can display the value, we can display the cos and tangent as well, or the tan as well for 0.5. So that's the way how we can use the math module in Jython. Next we have is the Jython control program flow. Jython control program flow means that we can control our program, we can control the execution of our program by using if else statement. So if else conditional statement is used in order to evaluate expressions and branch program logic based upon the outcome. So whatever outcome or whatever result is coming, based on that the program will execute, or the program flow will manage. An if else statement can consist of any expression, any number of expression can be added within if else statement. Multiple if else expressions can be chained together, so we can have multiple if else statement. So if we want to validate only one expression, only one condition, we only use if and else. If we have to evaluate multiple conditions, then we use if else. And if we want to validate multiple conditions in a single statement, that is also possible. So let's take an example here for conditional expression if else. So for this, I create one pi is the pi variable 3.14, and x is equal to 2.7 multiply 1.4, 1.45. This is just an expression. So we got the value of x and value of pi. So if I simple print pi and if I print x, I got the value 3.915. And now I want to validate it. I want to check whether they are same or not. So I simple pass a command here. We can use control flow program. So I pass if x equal pi colon, make sure to press spacebar once, print both are same, elif x greater than pi, spacebar, print x is greater than pi, else print pi is greater than x, and to press again, and we got the value x is greater than pi, because you can see the value of pi is 3.14 and the value of x is 3.915. So the evaluation take like this. First it enters into the first expression, it check the first condition whether x is equal pi. Because this condition is false, so it jumps directly to the next condition, that elif condition, elif statement. Then it validate elif and it found that x is greater than pi, and it print x is greater than pi. And once this expression is executed, it directly jumped out of this condition. It will not jump to the else statement, or it will not display the else statement. So that's how we can use the validation, how we can use the elif, we can use the control program flow, or the if elif else statement. So we can have multiple conditions. I pass here one condition, we can have multiple conditions, and also we can have nested if elif else statement, like within one if we can have another if and elif if elif else statement. We can use it as well. Let's take one more example here to validate the whether the list is empty or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create one list here, and this is an empty list. So as you can see here, this list does not contain any elements. So I'm going to validate it that if my list simple and print space for person. So I'm going to make sure that if the my list exists, then it will print the values, else it will display a message that the list is empty. So I'm going to print all the values from the my list. So person in my list, print, make sure the indentation will be correct, else print list is empty. And I got the value list is empty because this list does not contain any value. So here this condition, it will validate if this list contain any elements or not. So because the list is empty, so it validate this, it check this, and because it found the list is empty, there are no element exist in the list, so it directly jump to the else statement and print list is empty. In similar way, we have the loop statement as well. This is the if else statement. In similar way, we can use loops as well for repetition. For iteration, we can use loops as well, like we have while loop, we have for loop. So to create a while loop or to work on for loop, we can define variables. Let's say I define a variable x is equal to 10 and y is equal to, sorry, I'll say x is equal to 0, y is equal to 10, and I say while x is less than equal to y, give one space bar, print x equal to %d %x space bar x equal to x plus 1. This is to increment. So you can see I got the value for while loop 0. It starts from 0 because the value of x is 0, and it incremented 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, and once the x value reaches 10, it print x equal less than equal to y, and once the x value becomes 11, it exits the while loop. So that's how we can process or how we can execute a loop in Jython. Similar way, we can use a for loop. So to use a for loop, let's create a list here. So I create my list equal to 1 2 3 4 5. So I create a for loop for value in my underscore list, space bar, print and percent s percent value, because the value is going to be stored in the value. So we got the value 1 2 3 4 5. So that's how we can define for loop and while loop. Next we have functions in Jython. So basically functions are the fundamental units of work in Python. So the functions which we used in Python and the way of defining a function in Python can same method of same we can define in Jython as well. A function in Jython perform a task and returns a result. So function will perform a task and then it will return and result to the statement. Functions are usually defined by using the def keyword, the name of the function, its parameter, if there are any parameters, and the body of the code. So here is the syntax of the function, how we are going to define a function. So first of all, the def keyword, then we define the name of the function. If we are going to pass up, if we are going to create a parameterized function, if any argument are going to be passed, we pass the arguments here. Then we define the block of that function. So let's take an example. So I'm going to define a function here. So to define a function, I start with def and function 1, and this function takes one parameter and return. So this is the simple calculation I'm doing, and you see that function will not called automatically. Function has defined, but the function will not call automatically. We need to execute that function. So to call that function, we simple give the function name and the parameter, because if I try to execute this function, I got an error message that the function takes at least one arguments. So you can see this function takes one, this function has got one parameter. So if to call this function, we need to pass one parameter to it, and now I got the output 16 because this function passed this parameter 8 to n. The value of n becomes 8, and 8 into 2 is equal to 16. In similar way, if we want to store the value of the function, the value returned from the function in a variable, we can create a variable x is equal to and function 1 and 5, and then when we print the value of x, we got the output 10. So this function will be called, one parameter will be passed to this. So this 5 passed to n, 5 into 2 10, and it will return the 10, and the value will store into x, and then we can use the value of x. We can use it either to print it or to perform some calculation. So for example, I can write here x plus 100, and I got the output 110 because the value of x is 10, and the value of x, we got the value from this value returned from the function. In Jython, we have one more type of function. We used to call them as a generic function. What are generic functions? The Jython functions are generic in that any type can be passed in for each argument. It means we can define the function. In the function, we have parameters. We can pass the parameters, and we can pass any sort of values to those parameters. It is not mandatory that we can pass only integer to the functions. So a function can be called, a function can be means any type of value can be passed to that function, and it perform the calculation. So let's take an example of generic function, and the generic functions are extremely flexible. So for the same kind of task, you don't need to define multiple functions. The same function will work, the same function will solve the task. The generic function work as long as the operation perform on the arguments in the function. So as long as we have the arguments in the function, generic function will work. Let's take an example of a generic function. I define def sum and pass two parameters to its x comma y, and it return x plus y. Function is defined. Now I'm going to call this function by passing parameters. So I pass two parameters 10, 20, and I got the output 30. In similar way, if I pass string to it, let's say I pass ABC, comma DEF, and when I run it, call the function, evaluate, execute it, I got output ABCDEF. So you can see the similar kind of function, the same function. If I pass numbers, it calculate it, add this, and if I pass a string to it, it concatenate it. So this is called generic function. So we do not need to define different functions for different variables, different data types. Same kind of function will the same function will perform different operations. It depends on what type of value we are passing to that parameter, to that function. So that's all in this video. I hope you found this video useful, and this video will enhance your learning in Jython. I will be coming up with my second video in Jython. In that video, I will be going to tell you about some additional features of Jython, as well as we'll be going to talk about the classes and OOPS concept in Jython, as well as file handling. So you can subscribe my YouTube channel for next video, or if you want to hear from us the updated videos on Jython. If you have any queries, you can write to us on www.bisptrainings.com. Keep watching. Have a nice day. Goodbye.